Former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd was handpicked as our ambassador to Washington by his good mate, the Prime Minister. Now, that was always asking for trouble. Kevin Rudd's ego, big. Former Foreign Minister Penny Wong, she sure didn't like the idea, warned Rudd to pull his head in and be a team player. But here we go. Prime Minister Albanese has said very little about the Chinese attack on our Navy divers last week, where one of its ships sounded its sonar to hurt them when they were in the water. We've talked all about that. Albanese hasn't wanted to say much about that to keep sweet with China, pretend they're still good mates, instead of denouncing this, well, unprovoked aggression. But Kevin Rudd, he's now cut loose like he's the Prime Minister instead of just the humble ambassador. Here he is in an exclusive interview with our Annalise Nielsen that we'll show tomorrow.
I think China's activities through the Chinese naval destroyer has been outrageous. Remember, this incident occurred within the Japanese exclusive economic zone. It's not exactly a piece of contested waterway somewhere nearer to the Chinese coast. And secondly, as you rightly point out, this action against HMAS Toowoomba occurs at a time when the Chinese have said that they are seeking to stabilise the relationship with the United States, stabilise the relationship with China, and stabilise the relationships more broadly.
Kevin Rudd saying it like the current Prime Minister won't. Joining me is the panel, Michael Costa, former New South Wales Labor Treasurer, and Federal Queensland Liberal MP Garth Hamilton. Michael, this was always going to happen, wasn't it, where the Prime Minister stopped being an ambassador and started dictating our government policy?
Well, you know my historic view on Kevin Rudd. I've never been a fan. He's the type of bloke that thinks he's the smartest one in the room with the least ability to match that perception of himself. Look, the problem is I'm conflicted because he's absolutely correct, and I don't often say that about Kevin Rudd. But he's not the Prime Minister. He's not the Foreign Minister. He's the bloody ambassador to the USA. I mean, he's not even an ambassador to that region. He's got to hide, I think, and really, Albanese's got to show some leadership. I expect a phone call from the Prime Minister to him, at least from the Foreign Minister, to pull him into line. He shouldn't be making these comments. He's completely out of his jurisdiction and remit. It's quite outrageous. But we all remember he wanted to be the Secretary General of the UN. He probably would have been better than the current bloke, but maybe that's what they should do: try and get him out before he does any more damage.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. It won't be Anthony Albanese that rings Kevin Rudd. It'll be Penny Wong. But here, Garth, I mean, there's a free kick for you in a way, but to me, it's another small example of how the leadership vacuum in the spot where Anthony Albanese is allowing people to just run their own races. There's a breakdown in discipline, and this is an example of it.
Well, this is why we continue to call out Mr Albanese's failure of leadership. And as much as I agree with Michael that Kevin's right on this one, and gee, it's a tough day for the Prime Minister when Kevin Rudd appears to be a better leader than you. But, the only reason this is happening is because Albo said nothing. The only reason that Kevin's had the opportunity to step into this space is because Mr Albanese hasn't spoken up. And look, let's all be honest here. No one believes that Mr Albanese did stand up to China, but equally, I think most people would believe that Peter Dutton would. And there's a clear difference in the offering of the two leaderships and the leadership styles between the two major parties.
Well, this is karma. I mean, Anthony Albanese wanted Kevin Rudd there. Now he's got him. Well and good. I just can't get over, Michael, the Albanese government granting 680 visas in 6 weeks to Palestinians with some unspecified connection to Australia, people in many cases living under or next to or even with the Hamas terrorist group, who knows, which runs Gaza, and granting those visas almost immediately. Isn't it true that the chances of proper scrutiny checking of those 680 applications in that short period of time, 860, got that wrong, 860 in that short time, proper security checks very low?
Well, I agree with you, Andrew, and let's make it all clear. This is not because they're Palestinians. It's because we're not confident that the process itself has been undertaken. There may be legitimate reasons And remember, there are Christian Palestinians too, a small number, but a reasonably large community in Australia. Now, this allegedly is due to family relationships. I just want to make the point. Some of those people who were in front of the Opera House, I hope they aren't related to that family that was calling out "gas the Jews." I mean, clearly we want scrutiny, and I think that's the issue. And the way this has been handled is appalling. It's they haven't come out and explained the reasons for it. They haven't created any framework for people to be able to scrutinise this. And the other thing I found really galling was to hear the foreign minister claim that there was some sort of equivalence by allowing Jews to come into Australia, Israelis. That's an absurd position to take. I mean, Israel's a liberal democracy, and clearly those people wouldn't be having the sort of views that some of the people that are likely to come out of Gaza have. So I think that was a pathetic attempt to justify her position. I think what they need to do is be transparent. There needs to be a press conference tomorrow with some assurances that ASIO and the other agencies have actually vetted these people.
Well, I just don't see how that is remotely possible. Now, I get that what you say, that some might be Christians coming out sponsored by Christians here, but seriously, Garth, what do you make of this? I mean, Wong's excuse, look, I gave twice as many visas to Jews, to Israelis. I mean, seriously, who worries about Israelis coming here?
Well, let's be clear, what this provides us is a great opening into the thought process of this Labor government. It's all about identity politics. The idea that someone's race, religion, creed, whatever is the important factor. What's important is that we have processes in place to keep Australia safe. That's what's important. Our government put those processes in place. All Labor had to do was follow them. That's all they had to do. We've got them in place. What matters is that the government commits to its responsibility, its first responsibility of looking after Australia. It hasn't done that. And I would point out this is the second failure under Claire O'Neill's magnificent leadership in her portfolio in the matter of a couple of weeks. This is clearly the weak link in this Albanese government in immigration, home affairs. And I think we're going to see this unravel further, unfortunately. There's so many questions to ask. Why they've chosen to do this at this time now? Has process been followed? And what steps have been taken to ensure that Australians are being kept safe?
Now, meanwhile, there's a pro-Palestinian protest in Port Botany last night. 23 more pro-Palestinian protesters arrested. There have been so many arrests now of pro-Palestinian protesters. I don't think a single one, well, there was one Jew that's been arrested, and that's only because he might be attacked by Palestinians as well, which is weird at a Sydney protest. Now, I should say, they weren't all Palestinians at Botany, this Port Botany protest last night, despite so many of them wearing ethnic clothing and this radical chic, the Palestinian scarf. Have a listen to the New South Wales Chief Commissioner.
Police were very patient in dealing with that group, and 23 people are now before the court. In addition to that, I would say broadly that most of them were, a great large number of them were professional protesters who currently are protesting about the Gaza conflict, but next week they'll probably protest about something else.
Michael, you used to be the radical left. I don't really want to tell viewers that, but let's be honest. Before, you saw the light somewhere on the road to Damascus, why is the left so attracted to this cause? And why are so many pro-Palestinian protests so threatening and even violent?
Well, Andrew, I mean, that was 60 years ago, but I'm happy to cop it on the chin. The bottom line here is, and you've got to remember, even in those days, you had people on the left supporting Pol Pot. I mean, this is not unusual for the left. Every tin pot ratbag, genocidal regime, there'll be somebody on the left supporting them. And, Cuba and the Sandinistas, we've had them all. Part of the problem here is, and I think the police commissioner identified it, there is a sort of a fashionable group of people that think protesting is a sort of good substitute of earning a proper income, and they're out there protesting at everything. They wouldn't even understand the core issues, as we all know, but they are the useful idiots for the people that do understand what they're doing and causing mayhem on our streets. look, it is good that the police have finally started to arrest these people. Law and order is what the public expects. They don't care about the protests. They care about law and order. And, the police are doing their jobs finally. And I think, the other issue, of course, Andrew, is all our institutions, particularly our universities, people with PhDs in victim theology, teaching these people that somehow this is a good manifestation of proper citizenship, and it's crazy stuff.
Garth, I'm out of time, but just quickly, why is it? Is it because the left gravitate to people that are anti-capitalist, Israel being more capitalistic, anti-white Israelis being generally, not all of course, whiter than at least Palestinians, and anti-people who are rich and free and democratic? Is it all that kind of stuff? Identity politics writ large, victimology?
I think we've got two issues. We've got a far left that we have a problem with. We have a militant far left in Australia. What a terrible thing to say. And we don't teach our kids our great stories, the great things about Western civilization that we should all be proud of, correct, the unifying effect of treating people as individuals. That's what we should be teaching our kids.
Enemies of Western civilization, I'm afraid, Garth. Michael Costa, Garth Hamilton, thank you so much to you both.
Thanks, Andrew.